All righty, everybody, welcome. It is Thursday, May 14th, 2026. I am joined here with Arnie Boyarsky for Stride Live, Season 3, Episode 9. Arnie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good today. It's a nice day out in Colorado, enjoying some nice weather right now. So, yeah,
That's
it's pretty
awesome.
solid.
Yeah, you guys just had snow. One of
Thanks,
my
Casey.
buddies lives down in Trinidad, and he was like, it's crazy to have snow and then 90 degrees the next day.
I know, right? So, yeah, it should be a good time out here.
That's good. So today, if you guys aren't familiar with Arnie, he's a 35-year technology entrepreneur. He's been in the space for a long time, former MSP CFO, current CEO of 𝐈𝐧𝐿. He has left an MSP. He has written a book called MSP Exit Warfare. He is an expert on the space. He knows the AI, the numbers, the ins and outs. Today, we are talking about the inevitable changes coming to the MSP industry, especially as it looking in the next 6 to 12 month period. Arnie, first and foremost, I know you probably have 10 things on your mind relating to this. What is the first thing coming to mind that you're screaming from the rooftops? Hey, MSPs, please pay attention. Listen to me about this.
I have a there's quite a bunch, quite a number of things, but uh, AI and automation, where that's headed, is first and foremost on my mind. I still see and talk to a lot of my friends who are sort of waiting to see what the big boys do, what ConnectWise does, what
Mhm.
Microsoft does, where things are headed. But anything else, I would say, if you're not doing it already, um, build some type of confidence using the tools. And there's no one tool right now. Everybody's in a race for the future right now. So that yeah, just get some of your engineers, get some of your techs working with AI very regularly. Make it a thing within your company and see where things go, because this is the future, without a doubt. This is where things are headed, and yeah,
Yeah, that's a good point. I want to peel back the onion. Using AI, how? In tools, in using an LLM, just testing Claude, building processes, seeing
at
what
this
trends are.
yeah, great question. At this point, it doesn't matter. I mean, there's a lot of tools, there's harnesses out there, there's different LLMs. I think what's going to happen is the LLMs are going to become very commoditized. They're all going to be the same. They're all going to generate the same thing over the next you know few years, and they're all racing about this. They're all in a line to sort of provide the same thing right now. But getting familiar with this concept that human beings are fallible, and the fallibility of your engineers, you can make a lot of that go away by using a lot of the tools that are out there. But having familiarity with the LLMs and with the tools and with what is an outcome based um, thinking process
Mhm.
for solving problems is really important. I just say get started if you haven't already.
Yeah, I hear the AI conversation every single day, as I'm sure everybody does. You can't escape it, and even if you're in the woods. But I'd say when you talk about AI, there's many methods. Some MSPs I talk to, they're using AI as a revenue generator to say, hey, here's how you can implement it in your business. Some are using it to optimize processes. Some are using it to answer questions in their business from a quality assurance and service profitability. You see it everywhere. And I think it's like you mentioned, it's finding that combination. One tool that we use that leverages AI quite a bit for many MSPs I see is Roost, some sort of automation around your subscription license billing, things of that. But what I usually say is caution away from just using it for the purpose of just using it. Like, have some sort of goal in mind. Otherwise, you will just be overwhelmed pretty quickly. And I think too, when you look at AI, it's how are you going to use this as not the main system or the main answer, but the driver of your process, and using it to eliminate that, hey, humans should not be doing this, or this is something that is not really makes sense from an efficiency standpoint, even if it's just accessing data, accessing policies, using controls. But when you talk about AI in MSPs, what have you seen as the most, hey, these are the highest success cases, or what I see MSPs using AI in their business? Where have you seen really great applications?
I've seen the best applications so far. I've seen the best applications so far with vibe coding results, where you can
Oh, that's
go
so
in
funny.
as an owner or CEO and say, I'm I just want some information about how to run my business. And you get going with it. Next thing you know, you're like, why am I paying for all of these extra systems out here? So I've seen a lot of progress in that, and it's amazing how much you can get done very quickly. I've been using Replit a lot the last, the last 6 months, and it's unbelievable what's possible to do with that. One of the things that always bothered me about the using a PSA tool is that we give another company all of our data, and then we pay to access it. And what vibe coding and AI and all of this stuff allows you to do is take that back. And that's it can be a big cost saver, but you also, get to have the information that you want at your fingertips when you want it displayed and presented in a way that works for you and your business. So I've seen a lot of that with my peers that are really into this now, and they're
Interesting.
yeah.
No, I mean, keep going. If there's other things, I mean, this is time to really discuss, because I know there's a lot of,
All right.
when people talk about AI,
Well,
what people are sick of is, as you mentioned, the tools or scraping the surface of you need it, but none of that. It's kind of like cybersecurity was about a decade ago. Oh, you need cyber, you need security in your business.
Yeah.
Okay, why? How? Where does that get employed? What do I do to do that? Now there's things of CMMC and compliance based and policy based driven and controls based security. Where are you seeing, hey, to get rid of that noise, how do you just dig in and say, this is what you really should be focusing on? And you mentioned, hey, this your data, you have that PSA, you have your financial systems, you have all this data available, but then getting access and usability of it. I mean, I think you've made a good case, but where else are you seeing, or how do you see that really being applied? I mean, you mentioned a tool, Replit, but where else do you see MSPs using the tools or using AI?
Well, I see some MSPs, creating, apps very quickly for customers to access exactly what they want at the MSP level. Obviously, simple things like ticket triage and all the things that I'm sure most of the audience here is doing already. But really, where the necessity for the learning is coming because there's a transformation happening in this industry, and it's happening very, very quickly. And for those for those MSPs that aren't versed and have some confidence in the tools and in the systems and in artificial intelligence itself, they're going to be in trouble. And because what's going to happen, I firmly believe this, is that the customers are going to change. It's easy when you're running an MSP to take new systems and new technology, implement it, take it back to your engineers and say, hey, we're doing this now. But the reality is that the customers themselves are going to change. They all want it. Some of them are going to be using it themselves, and they're going to be questioning why am I spending so much money on an MSP? Do I even need one? Do I even need one at all? My computers now can self-heal. I get the answers to the questions I want immediately. It's with very little effort. I don't have to deal with, another company and all that. So if MSPs don't position themselves differently over the next few years and start thinking about that now as they get familiar with the tools, integrated into their own business and workflows, start using it for efficiencies within their own organization, and then take it out to customers, they're going to find themselves without, in a future where it's even harder to get new customers because the customers are doing it themselves. And so that's one of the big takeaways from today is this concept that the customers themselves are going to be changing. And
I've talked about that a lot, because I see a very clear split in this industry of those who are still, they view themselves as MSP. They stay where they are. They're happy, but they don't understand the risk that is ahead. And then I see those that are saying, okay, I can't be seen as, if you look at the iterations, what was MSPs? You were the computer guy, and then you became the IT guy. Then you became the cloud application. Oh, you're the technology guy. Now, really, I see that as you need to be the technology and AI partner. You need to be able to understand and leverage not only tools, but the systems, the information, and as it relates to specific industries, what are the problems that they're facing and how do you leverage that? Which, if you look at, has not really changed. It's just the application of your door into solving those problems is no longer, here's a piece of hardware, I'm going to protect it, and if things come up, you come to me. It's more you need to take a proactive approach saying, hey, I work with dentists. What are the challenges they face? What are the most common systems they use? We do this as an accounting firm. We work with MSPs, so we use ConnectWise, Halo, AutoTask, SuperTops, and all the secondary tools internally. And it
Yeah.
allows us to say, hey, not only do we understand where your business is and what the challenge you're facing, but here's the best practice of these tools. You can flip that and say, it's not just from technology security, but operations efficiency. I see a lot of MSPs doing automation, getting into leveraging tools like Power BI and becoming data analytics type of organizations. I think there's a lot of that. You have the resource, you have the expertise. These guys are smart. These industries are very, hey, DIY type A, I'm gonna learn how to do it and apply. It's really cool. Use that in your client's business, and you'll find that as an easy application. It could be something as simple as, hey, here's how you can use Claude to look at your data sets to acquire, just look for some trends and inefficiencies. Like something as simple as that can be an answer to a problem where your client is going to traditionally come to you saying, hey, I need this, I can't log in, password, whatever the case is. But now it's, no, that conversation graduates instead of, hey, do you have uptime? Do we need to do that server project, et cetera, et cetera? No, it's a cloud based. These are people working at home and don't know what the technology is capable of or where to start. That's where you kind of can insert yourself. And the MSPs that are becoming that subject matter expert on AI, even though it's almost impossible to be that as it changes every day, they're at least saying, no, I'm working with this every day and here's what you can do to leverage it. And it's always changing, which sounds a lot like when I used to sell cybersecurity. We don't know what's coming next, but we know what you can do now. And here's general prevention that covers you for 80% of what's going on. And we'll figure out the 20% as it relates to you, together. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Building an AI based practice within your organization, and being subject matter experts on not just AI, but on the customers themselves and their own business process is key. Because with AI, it's all outcome based. You don't, historically we've looked at, hey, what's the process that a person has to go from, that an engineer has to go from getting from point A to solving their problem. That's to fix something technical. But the real value in bringing this to the clients is that it's outcome based on their business. Most businesses don't go into business wanting to have a managed service provider, somebody fixing their stuff that's broken, fixing technology. They know they need technology to run their company, but their business model has nothing to do with this. And with AI, with automation, with workflows, with robotics, we now have the ability to go to a customer and say, what outcome are you looking for? And then let the LLM, let the AI figure it out. They don't need to know all the inner workings of it as long as you can deliver that outcome. And what that's going to do is it opens up this whole tremendous opportunity in being the people that create the automation and then charge the customers on a recurring monthly service to keep it running and to make updates. That model is incredibly solid and sticky because you've developed what amounts to a custom app, recurring revenue for a customer that needs it, and with real results, to help drive their business forward. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
We talked quite a bit about how AI and where it's going to be leveraged within businesses. But what I want to talk about is when you see sweeping changes where AI is fundamentally changing how MSPs operate the same way that cloud-based computing did. I mean, when you could physically say, hey, now I no longer always need to be on site, it changed the game. And I will say a lot of MSPs probably did not adapt and they didn't survive. But for most clients and most MSPs, it became this huge opportunity. So what I want to ask is, in these sweeping changes, this is probably the biggest wave we've had since cloud computing really became available. What are the things that you see or you would recommend MSPs can do to not only stay competitive, but to not even just about competition, but staying really that at advantage to say, hey, this could be a land grab for myself and put myself in a competitive environment. If the competitors or the Joe Schmo IT down the road's not changing, what can I do? Or what do you see as differentiators that really are helping MSPs take advantage of this opportunity?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought up land grab because that's all that this ends up being in the long run. Because
Yeah.
AI is coming everywhere. The old MSPs of break fix, that model is going away. Even the notion of, proactive, let me fix this stuff, that's going to be a thing of the past. It's because the systems are going to be self healing, which means that the MSP and the MSPs, one of the big advantages we have and we've always had is that customer relationship, right? You have to build trust with a business owner that's willing to let you into their, the darkest secrets about their company, and then you can help them out, right? But you need the customer to do that. And with all of this traditional stuff that MSPs have been doing historically, sort of receding into the last generation of technology and the future of where the industry is headed, it's that relationship and that ability to bring these new solutions forward to the customers of the MSPs, that's really going to make a difference. And what that means is, you brought up land grab. The more customers you have, the better, because the future is going to look very different than it does today for the traditional MSP. And those MSPs that stay with, traditionally MSPs, they just don't change very often, right? It's hard to, they build these business processes and they think they're, I don't know. That's just my experience with MSPs is it's difficult to change how engineers work and how the processes and all that stuff, and you integrate into your business, all that, but it's inevitable that this change is coming, and it's coming very, very quickly. So the more customers you can get, the faster you can get those customers and maintain those relationships, the better you will be by a long shot.
Yeah, I see the pricing model changing every day where, and the per seat is now per device or per user, or it's a flat fee service model based on the overall support. But I think what I've seen too is that while some people and some really specific side, but there's always going to be a need for some physical industries and certain compliance of that, they're doing okay. They've differentiated the CMMC, those compliance specific. But when you look at the generalists or the non-specialists or the multi-specialists, meaning, hey, we do a little bit of everything, we can be that. What I've seen is, like you've said, your total number is going up of clients, but that per seat and per revenue or the profitability or whatever metric, the revenue in dollars per client is going down. And that's not to say that it can't recover or stay where it is, but once again, differentiation. What are you doing besides keeping a device running and keeping it secure and keeping it moving? Like that is not a difference maker. And it's no different than, you hate to say commoditization, but we see this in our world, the accounting versus bookkeeping. We always joke, what is a bookkeeper? Well, someone who knows books. And that doesn't mean that they truly understand the accounting and application of accounting and bookkeeping practices, the same way that just because you can fix a device or because you have managed contracts because you used to work for an MSP and then, a couple clients liked you and now you own $1 million MSP for 15 years. Those MSPs I find are going to struggle because, one, like you said, they're adverse to change. They haven't adapted. Their processes are what their processes are, but they're really going to struggle because you entered a market at a certain level of service maturity, that maturity is kind of now a baseline. It's no longer that differentiator. And I think AI is, as you mentioned, it's not a land grab just for clients. It's a land grab for services, opportunities, and where you can differentiate yourself as the technology specialist. Because I always make this joke about, hey, what is sales anymore? Sales used to be providing people with information. Well, now it's actually the opposite. There's more information available than I could ever provide, but I have to understand how that information applies to them and where other information leads. Meaning, hey, if you have this question on accounting, what are the considerations from tax, from financial wherewithal, from systems, processes? That is the responsibility of the MSP owner, because every MSP owner and leader, you are in sales no matter what. If you own a business, that's the number one function you need to focus on. Yeah. So if you're able to understand that and build that into not only a process, but then use AI to demonstrate that system of, hey, I work with dentists, I work with lawyers, I work with accountants or car dealerships, you're going to be able to win and build something that's going to survive the next 5 to 10 to 20 years, as opposed to I'm always trying to play that catch up game that you see so many MSPs trying to solve with conferences and softwares and tools and more labor and more technicians, but they never address the root problem, which is 9 times out of the 10, it's your process. It's how you fundamentally operate as an MSP.
Yeah, yeah. And a big change that is happening now, we have the ability as salespeople, as the MSP, to go into an unknown prospect with solutions that are already custom fit for them. And I'm starting another company, and most of this is automated already. I go into our current geo, search for terrible websites, redo them, email the customer, email the completely blind email. Hey, I saw your website. It sucks. I've done this for you. Are you interested? Great. A couple $100 a month, done. And the ability to go in to pre-analyze a customer, because all of this data that's out there, and say, hey, based on you as a prospect in your life cycle, the size of your business, these are the challenges which I believe you have. It's generally fairly close, and you go in with pre-done solutions and proposals for solving problems right away. It changes the sales. It changes what you're doing as a salesperson. You're going in as an expert in their business already, and they've never even met you, and you now have the ability to do that because of the tools and because of what AI can do. So it's quite powerful. It's quite powerful to go in from that perspective. Yeah. Very unlike how it used to be, where you had to learn a customer and learn all of this stuff. So that's a big differentiator, is to be able to go into a prospect with solutions in hand.
Yeah, that comes back to the old marketing fundamental of marketing is making sure that they understand what you do, and branding is when they remember how you do it. And you can actually build that in, as you mentioned, your sales process now. It's no different than we can take a tax return, put it in, and have a good understanding of not all of these strategies apply. That's where the differentiator is, that's saying, hey, you might be eligible. That's why you work with me, but I've already identified these potential opportunities, and it could save you X amount of dollars up to X amount of dollars. If you'd like to, we can do that. But I think there's that realm of how, as you mentioned, how can I build within? And most of the time when we think AI, we think embedding AI in the operations process, but how can you embed that in the sales process, that discussion, that first initiation? I talked with Brian Gillette about this last week, whether it's, like you said, prospecting, finding the data. Everybody worries about, oh, the data's everywhere, security. It's out there. No matter what, you can be found, your data's there. Other companies are already leveraging it. All the big guys are. You might as well take that, because it's kind of like when social media came out. When social media came out, you had access to marketing mediums that no longer were accessible or inaccessible to those who didn't have the money, billboards, radio, print, whatever. AI has done that for data. You now have access to information that you used to have to pay somebody, pay a tool, or pay for, that you now can use on an open source model, or pay for one tool and have access to this. It's no longer in, the Apollos and the Zoom infos, and that'll be upset, but you can build even better curated prospect lists if you're willing to understand how to use the tool without having to make some large investment. And it'll make your process a lot more automated, from outsourcing, from automation of reaching out, outbound, inbound marketing, cold direct, SEO, all of these things that MSPs need to invest in. I would take a look and saying, AI should be applied in my business internally, but let me focus on, because once again, you said operations, they don't like to change. Let's focus on the easiest. If it's a founder-led MSP, you're the one doing all sales and marketing, use it there first, because then you'll say, hey, I've done this here. I've adopted. Here's why we're having a bunch of new clients coming in here. How can we leverage AI on the team? But you made a really good point. Dedicate somebody in your organization, or multiple somebodies, into learning how to use AI and leverage it. Don't go on a token basis where you're seeing, like Amazon. I just read a story this morning. They're forcing people to use AI, and they're using tokens, for instance, of like, sign into my access for me, or do like very mundane. So make it embedded where it becomes a vested interest and not another metric of success that you're judging them on. I would really call for it.
I encourage for those, have within your organization, incentivize the employees, all of them at every level, to use AI, get them licenses, get them tools. And I don't mean Microsoft Copilot. I'm talking about go deeper than that. Get them Claude, get them, Open AI, get them access, have them set up an Open Claude, server at in the office or at their house or something like that. But encourage people to do that. And, once a month have a hackathon or something. What did you guys get done today? It doesn't even matter what it is. There's amazing ideas that come from every level within an organization. And if you're encouraging your employees and you build that into the culture of the company, that this is what we do, it's a very low investment for the return that you will have. You mentioned some stuff about marketing and sales. I am a subscriber to Apollo. I've been for many years, but recently I built my own OpenClaw system here and I asked it to go out and find the exact ICP, the exact customer profile that I was looking for, without using Apollo, without one of these data sources. It scoured the internet. It ran an agent. It ran the job, and it pulled up 400 or something contacts with emails, to exactly who I was targeting. It didn't cost me anything, or a few tokens to do it. That's the kind of that is just one sample, one small little piece of what the future is going to look like. You take that, run it across, the rest of your sales process and what you think you do now, and it will, if you get familiar with it, you get comfortable with it, it's amazing what you can get done on your own terms, your own way.
I hear a lot more Claude anymore than I do hear ChatGPT, Gemini, the others. Why Claude? Is it because of
it's just really, really good with coding, and
Okay.
so the best thing that I've found, and some of the other peers that are using it this way, is to use OpenAI for the framework. It's like OpenAI is like the adult in the room. It knows things very well. And then when you want to get some actually work done, send it over to Claude to do. So that using multiple models to get the results you want is pretty solid. Claude's very, very good with code. But OpenAI is very good with foundational and structure and, what's the big picture kind of stuff. So use multiple models.
So we've talked heavy on AI. AI is changing the space. Differentiators for MSPs. The old MSP model, it's not dead, but it is going away. We've talked about how to embed AI not only in your operations, your sales process for your clients, what the next wave of how to sell and be, really a modern MSP looks like. I do want to talk about the other side of the coin. I'd be wrong if I didn't, with Arnie on the phone, saying, for those looking to exit, M&A has not gone anywhere. It's only ramped up. We see it every day. It's dry. We have a couple going through exits right now. What do you see the inevitable changes this year? I know we mentioned land grab, but in the M&A space and as MSPs look to exit, what are those changes that you've seen this year?
I grew up I was the first generation of MSP owners, whatever. I grew up with this stuff. We created the industry from nothing. And so there's a whole generation of people that are my age that are looking to exit and want to get out for various reasons. The biggest changes that I'm seeing is that PE and roll-up exits are not the only answer. We've been taught in our peer groups and our organizations for over 10 years that build it to your number, whatever that number is, and then exit, sell off to, a roll-up, a PE, whatever, and get out. And this notion of running a lifestyle business was sort of frowned upon. But the biggest change I'm seeing is that it's okay to run a lifestyle business. There's a lot of upside for selling. You're out, you're done, but there's also a big downside. And the reason that a lot of people start companies themselves is they want to just carve their own path, choose their own destiny and all that. And, you've built something that you could potentially just, be a stakeholder in, hand it off to your family, have it generating recurring income for, for on into the future. And now with AI, you don't have to deal with employees as much as you had to deal with them before because you can scale without having to scale the headcount. So,
Yeah.
there's a lot of opportunity for running lifestyle businesses that can generate a lot of money every month for a long time.
Yeah.
So just something to consider. That's the biggest change that I'm seeing amongst the selling from the sell side is that it's okay to to not sell the PE because there's a real
Yeah.
downside on that one as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not ironic, but it's, not coincidental that, hey, all the people that are in these peer groups sponsoring and own the companies are saying, hey, sell to PE, roll up to PE. Of course, they're going to have that method. And don't be wrong, it can be, and I call it a lottery ticket for many MSP owners because a lot of them never ended up thinking they would be in that stage of, wow, this thing that I have can be 5, 10, $20 million. But I attended a presentation last year at IT Nation from Heartland Ross, who's the host broker, and he says this all the time. And another guy who ran an MSP and has purchased 7 MSPs to roll up in his, and he said, Bill, that M&A process doesn't end with that sale. You have to understand the life cycle of what's before and after. What are you doing once that happens? And it's not uncommon. And there was over 100 MSPs owners who have surveyed over the last 5 years that sold, and 60% of the time they have had some sort of depression or anxiety, or after they sold, they literally said, "I don't know what to do. I'm not sure. I wasn't sure if this was what I wanted," and actually regret selling. And what I've actually seen as a trend, and this is something we help, is like you mentioned, you've built the asset. You have something that generates recurring revenue, which if you looked at anything in the world of consumerism, everybody wants MRR now. Netflix to buying stamps to buying headphones, whatever, everything's a subscription. You have this now. Why not extract value today, tomorrow, and throughout the future? Because everybody has an exit plan. You will sell and move on from that business eventually, but it doesn't mean that, hey, I'm here at 50 and I no longer want to be working 40 to 50 hours that you need to. And this is why process, I come back to it. Second layer of leadership, having that seniority that can understand how to manage. And as you mentioned, those level 1 technicians, they're not going to go away entirely, but you don't need 4 or 5 on staff. I've been screaming this for the last 6 months of, hey, MSPs, you don't have a growth problem, you have an investment problem. You have $60,000 overhead and you spend $500 a month in marketing and sales. No wonder you're not growing. No wonder you haven't seen it utilization rates where you'd like them to be.
Yeah.
But when you look at it as a whole, it's like, hey, you have a good opportunity to say, I can use this to fund what I want, and working to say, what is that goal? I know that you've done that. I know many MSPs, they're saying, hey, maybe I just sell a portion of my client list. I don't like working with these general, but I'm really good at this thing and I really like the specialization. It allows me to be more fun and kind of the solopreneur, or that, hey, I got 2 or 3 people. Or I've seen them say, you know what? I'm going to start a business within my business and then eventually sell the MSP side so I can focus on the cloud computing, the whatever they're doing. I can name 9 things in the back of my hand. So I think that is a unique perspective, and extracting cash along the way. If you're not generating cash and you're not using it to fund retirement and investments and savings and that, you are sitting on a pile of gold that you're just allowing to wash away. On the M&A side, for those that say, you know what, Arnie, I do want to sell. What do you see as, hey, this is a competitive advantage that you can increase your valuation, or given the market of there's more buyers than sellers, and I know private equity is going to hate this, but what are things they can do to leverage the deal in their favor that you've seen?
Yeah, for sure. Well, definitely. Listen, I go back to what I said. Definitely the land grab because the the PE and the roll ups and the buyers, they know this, right? They know it's all about the end customer who pays that original bill, that flows
Yeah.
up eventually. So the more customers you have, the better, for sure. The other things to think about to put in your, just that can help in your favor is this understanding that buyers do this all the time. This is what their business is buying. You will only sell once. So you are right out of the gate, you are at a severe, severe disadvantage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking for most people. So, it's the same difference from, we fix computers and we fix technology all the time. We're great at it. And the buyers don't know anything about that. So we go in, we can help, PE firms and VC firms with their technology, right? Because this is what we do. So coming in with that perspective hopefully puts you on guard that you're already way behind in this race for a sale. They know what they're doing and we don't. And consequently, you can really get burned in a lot of areas. So that's one area that I would come in with understanding that. The other big thing, and you mentioned this, is starting something to fall into when you're done.
Yeah.
As owners and entrepreneurs, we create stuff, right? That's what we do. We're great at it. We love doing it. We get meaning out of life from this is what we do. And that stuff will shut off almost instantly, like immediately. The next day, it's gone. You sell, you sign, and you might stay on for a little bit, 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever, doing some type of earn-out, but you're no longer the owner. You're no longer the decision maker. You're not that anymore. And so this passion that drives most entrepreneurs to create is taken away. And that is really hard to deal with. So have something that you could fall into when, sort of the next chapter of your life, whatever that ends up looking like, and start early with that. Otherwise you're going to find yourself, with a bunch of money in the bank and a big question mark, like, what do I do now? And it's a real thing. I've seen it, I've experienced it, I've seen it with a lot of my friends. And as we go through the end, the PE, VC, they're all involved in our peers. Like you mentioned, they're all involved in the industry. They can dangle that carrot of millions and millions of dollars to come our way. And it sounds amazing until you're like, well, I can't possibly spend that much money. I don't know what to spend it on. What am I going to do with my life? Where am I going to derive my meaning from? Get ahead of that. That one's a big deal. If you can get ahead of that and start thinking about that now, will help out a lot in the transition after sale.
We help quite a few MSPs with that process, especially on the seller side, due diligence support, and getting really that M&A preparedness over a couple of years, process systems and all that. But I always say, it's like, what do you want to do after? What's the future? And it's not the future of your MSP, but what, for instance, we've had clients that said, hey, we're going to move to another country, or we're going to travel, or hey, having something in mind or something else, whether it's another business, it doesn't matter, but aligning that passion with purpose. Because as you mentioned, it shuts off overnight. I remember being a college athlete, people talking to me about, hey, there's one day where you're no longer, there's no practice, there's no way same thing as an entrepreneur. You sell your business. It's not that you're not that anymore. You just have to find a different area to apply that. And it could be completely recreational, but 9 times out of 10, 8 out of 10 times, I feel like it ends up being back in the professional sphere. Once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur. But the old adage of no money, no problems is true. I mean, you sit with there, and I'd say, he's saying, I got $6 million in the bank, but I don't know what to do with it. Like nothing changed. Like, house was paid, bills were done years ago. I've done this for a while. I don't know. And it just shows you, it's like, once again, I don't know who told me this, but it was, money doesn't change you. It amplifies who you were. And if you were an entrepreneur before money, you're going to be that after. So you need to find a way to apply that, and you'll be fine. And I think, I know we're getting close to time here, but I think from your perspective, when you exited, what was it? What was that? Hey, I know I'm going to be good. I know I don't need this in my day-to-day anymore, and I'm going to be fine. The next day is actually going to be a breath of fresh air, so I can go do what I'm excited about. How did you approach that, and what was that, timeline like for you?
It's a good question.
That's why I'm in this business, Arnie.
Well, I exited by creating another company that bought my MSP. So we went out, we raised a ton of money from venture capital, and part of the deal was we bought my old company, and then I was the founder of this new thing, which was, bringing AI technology and bringing AI and transforming, we were basically creating our own roll-up. And so I'm no longer involved with that company. I hired a CEO and brought him on, and So anyways, I'm no longer involved with that company. They're still doing great. I wish them all good luck and everything like that. But this kind of goes back to the difference between entrepreneurs who are usually visionaries and PE firms, VC firms who are in this for the money. They're in this for a transaction and to maximize their own investors' return. So the transition for me was, I knew I had stuff to fall back on. I had already created some other companies that were kind of sitting in the wings, like you had mentioned. But it was a very stressful time, and it was very painful transition, actually, for me personally. From the outside looking in, it looks great. You have a bunch of money, you don't have to work anymore, you sold your company. But as an entrepreneur, it didn't feel that way. It felt like it didn't feel as good as I thought it would feel from that perspective. Now that was, it's a year ago. Now everything's great now. I've started a number of other companies, and I have a completely different, fresh outlook on life. You don't know what you don't know, when you're in it. You don't know how good it can look when you're not in it anymore. I talk to my friends who are still, owners of MSPs, and I hope they get out and do something else, bring that entrepreneurial spirit back to them. Because when, as your company grows, you get, 30, 40, 50 people, it's a lot of, it's just not the same as it was when it was just you and a couple guys and just fixing people's computers all the time. So there is I'm rambling on, but there is a great world out there. If you've been doing the same thing for 30, 35, 40 years as an MSP owner, there is something that you can get back to of when you were young and starting out a business. And that piece is incredibly powerful. It takes a little time to get there, but it's there for sure. And I'm starting to see it happen now. So
that's awesome.
I don't know that I actually answered your question, but
it did. And there's no right answers here. It's experience, it's sharing, because I think that's what it gets glossed over. You go to every conference, it's how to sell and this and owner considerations and empowering, but it's like, no, let's talk to real people, cut through the BS and say, hey, what was it like when you did it? Because I know it's not, it's not that sunshine and rainbows. It's not, I've talked to MSP owners where, like I said, they said, hey, I wish I was there. Literally the day after I sold, I wish I was working on tickets. Like, it's crazy, but I think, like you said, it's what ignited that entrepreneurial spirit in the first place. Besides, hey, I wanted the autonomy. What was the thing that you said, hey, this is what I used to believe in, that real vision. And I think if you've lost that, it's a really good opportunity to reconnect. We're close to our time here. I don't want to go too long. The editors will hate me for it, but that's okay. It's a great conversation. Too long, didn't watch. Arnie, what is the one thing an MSP owner can take to support the inevitable changes coming in the industry this year?
Start building confidence around AI and automation, make it part of the culture, and really get into some of the vibe coding tools that are out there, because they are insanely powerful. And if you don't get involved with those, your customers are going to, and they're going to be questioning, what's the point? Understand fully that all of this AI, all of the things we think we're bringing, all the value we think we're bringing to customers is going to be built into the operating system of the future. Computers that will self-heal, they'll understand all of this stuff. So the MSP place in the universe is going to have to be carved out, and it's going to have to be carved out in a way that is not, it's going to have to be carved out in a new way that's based on understanding what the customer's business model is and what they actually want and need, not fixing computers. So I'd say, that is probably my biggest, one of the biggest takeaway from here about the changes that are coming in the near term. For this industry.
We keep bringing it up. We talked about it a dozen times, but it's because the inevitability is inevitable. It's right there. Arnie, I want to thank you. I really appreciate your schedule. Appreciate taking the time.
Thanks,
I know we
Casey.
talked about a month and a half ago, but thank you for doing this today. I appreciate you.
Oh, one more thing. Sorry. I just wanted to let everybody know. So I wrote a book. It's called MSP Exit Warfare. For those of you who've attended today, I don't know how you communicate, Casey. If they can send you an email, I'll send a copy to anybody who wants it. MSPExitWarfare.com is the website, but just shoot me an email or shoot Casey an email. hope I didn't just volunteer you for a bunch of nonsense, Casey, but
No, that's great.
happy.
I'll put it in the inner
Yeah,
circle.
it has a lot of the stuff I talked about. And for those of you who are thinking about exiting, it's a bunch of lessons that I learned. I never heard from PE, from from my lawyers, from my peer groups, from my friends who sold. It's just stuff I learned on the way that will really help you guys out on the sale.
Awesome. You guys can DM me on LinkedIn. I'll set it directly, and also on, if you've registered a link that you attended today, you can DM me directly and I'll get you in contact with Arnie, get you a free book here.
Thanks.
Thank you, Arnie. I appreciate you doing this today.
Thanks, Casey. Oh, hey,
Alrighty.
you too. It was great seeing you. Bye.
It's good seeing you.
Take it easy. Yep.